Hello everyone, this is PK Entertainment and we are back again, and we're now going to talk about Wonder Woman and the second trailer that debuted on the DC Fandome website a couple of hours ago now. So I'm just going to do a quick review and talk about the features that stood out for me and whether the trailer gives me more excitement for the movie. We still have no confirmation as to when it's released. I think its release date, to be honest, is going to hinge a lot on how well Christopher Nolan's Tenet performs on the box office. I know that's released shortly in the United Kingdom later this week, and it releases in the US on the 3rd of September, I believe. So I think the release date, we won't get confirmation of this movie until we see how Tenet performs. So I think pretty much now we know the story of Wonder Woman 1984, but just in case anybody that doesn't know, it is set within the 1980s, so this is a kind of a prequel story taking place, of course, before Batman vs Superman and Justice League, where we see Diana as Wonder Woman adjusting to life now, following her adventures from the first movie. This, of course, will feature probably her most famous and most iconic supervillain, Cheetah. Now, anybody who doesn't know, Cheetah, of course, is a character who overall has a very much of an insecurity and inferiority complex. She's very much jealous of Diana's powers and skills and her status, if you go by various iterations of the characters over the years, and she somehow adopts superpowers or super strength or super abilities and adopts the identity of Cheetah, where she takes on this leopard kind of costume or skin, and then she goes on to have various battles and struggles against Diana. Now, I think the version that they're going with on here, if I judge by the trailer, is the Barbara Ann Minerva character, because there have been various iterations of the character, but the Barbara Ann Minerva character of Cheetah is the one I think is the one that they're going with. I think that's the post-crisis character version, and I think that's the one that's currently still existing within the comic book versions at the moment. So what was good about this trailer? Well, I think again it's a very visually striking trailer. It's got lots of vivid colours, it's very bright in its tone, very similar to what we saw from the first movie. You remember when the trailer for the first movie dropped, everybody was impressed how it was such a departure from the more of the greyish muted tones of the Zack Snyder movies, and that's what we get here. There are some fantastic comic book flavour and colour here. It really visualises, I think, the main powers and the athleticism and the abilities of Wonder Woman. We get loads of shots of her when she's spinning her lasso, when she's pirouetting and she's making these huge leaps in the sky. We again see that first shot that we got from the first trailer where she's swinging with her lasso high in the skies amongst the clouds, and then she latches on with her lasso to that lightning bolt. That's a great visual shot on there. I love that. I love the way that we take these powerful comic book superheroes and we really visualize how powerful, how competent they are. I think we should always strive for that, where we see her jumping over the trucks and we see her again fighting against soldiers in the museum. We see her lifting the trucks and pressing them with her feet on here. We get that great edited shot at the beginning of the trailer where we see her running really fast as it intercuts with the flashback scenes from Themyscira. It's all great on here, and Gal Gadot, she looks absolutely fabulous in every scene. She may not be my definitive take on Wonder Woman, but she's proven herself, and I think she's very much of a appealing Wonder Woman for the modern cultures, and everybody seems to love her version of the character. So she looks fabulous here. So we get the feature, of course, where we see her reuniting with Steve Trevor, and spoilers again, just in case you don't know, Steve Trevor died in the first movie as he was helping the other characters and the commandos and Diana fight the soldiers from the climatic battle of the first movie. So I'm pretty sure we're going to get some sort of context into his return, how he's come back. I personally feel that this is a clone. I think someone has found his body and maybe they've linked to the fact that he had a recent relationship with Diana and they've cloned his character as a way to try and get to Diana and harm her that way. That's what I truly believe, and I think we're going to get some sort of heartbreaking climax at the end of the movie where Diana discovers that Steve Trevor isn't the person she deems him to be. So that's what I think is going on here, and I think, to be honest, I can understand why they brought Chris Pine back for the second movie, because the chemistry between Gal Gadot and Chris Pine served really well in the first movie. They had a really good dynamic together that helped the movie a lot in the more intimate scenes that they had together. It made the romance between the two a lot more believable. So I'm not really surprised that they brought Chris Pine back for the second movie. I think it makes it a lot easier for them, because otherwise, if you kept Steve Trevor out of it, that means you'd have to introduce a whole new character for Diana to bounce off with and have a relationship throughout the movie, because you couldn't have Diana just be on her own solely. Superman bounces off Lois Lane, of course, Batman bounces off Alfred. So as we know in the various iterations of Wonder Woman, Steve Trevor is kind of that mainstay companion of Wonder Woman. So I'm not surprised that they brought him back for the second movie. The scenes that they have together here, where we see him adjusting to life within the 80s landscape that they're in on it, they look great, and that's really where I think most of the movie's humour is going to come onto, the adjustment that he's making towards the current culture that they're in, and Diana having to explain to him how everything works on here. We have that great shot as well when they're in the supposedly invisible jet, and he remarks on the fact that nobody will be able to find him. She acknowledges the fact that they now have radar, and then we see that shot later where they're in the plane amongst the fireworks, it seems, as they're in the cockpit. And I think that's just a visualization of the fact that, yeah, they are in the invisible jet. We of course have Pablo Pascal playing Maxwell Lord on here. If you don't know him, he's of course from Game of Thrones, and of course from The Mandalorian as well. We don't really see a lot of his character, to be honest. I think the person or the voiceover at the beginning of this trailer talking about how you can be whoever you want to be, I think that is Maxwell Lord, and he's very much going to be the main supervillain behind the background. So the big question going into the sequel, for me certainly, and I think for a lot of fans, is the rendition of Cheetah, physically and also in terms of character. What is she going to look like? How is she going to be? How is she going to formally be a strong enough adversary for Wonder Woman? What's her character going to involve? So when I look at this trailer, it very much looks again that they're going to tie into that inception of the character that I mentioned before, how it's going to be a character who's very insecure about herself, has very much of an inferiority complex, and we see that scene at the beginning where it seems like she's some sort of lonely secretary in the office. She makes that remark how one person has everything and she has nothing. She's probably talking to Diana. That might be the scene where we see Cheetah or Barbara, if you like, in the museum facing off against Diana on here. That shot where she jumps at her and she pirouettes, that's a great scene, by the way, great looking visual on there. So I think they're going to draw on that dynamic that yes, Wonder Woman has established herself in this 80s culture here. Everybody's in awe of her status and her powers as she goes around saving people, and then maybe that's how Barbara creates or develops that inferiority complex and wants to make herself better. I also believe that the concept that I referred to before about the cloning side of things, I think that's how she's going to get her powers. Maybe she gets injured or fatally wounded before, and then Maxwell Lord helps her to gain the super strength powers, or maybe she goes to Maxwell Lord because, as I mentioned before, that speech at the beginning when he talks about wanting to improve oneself and their abilities. So I think that's how they're going to spin it, and maybe Barbara goes to Maxwell Lord, and that's when she becomes part of the scientific experimentation or cloning initiatives, and that's how we see her develop the powers of Cheetah. So the burning question, the burning issue, and really probably one of the more mixed reactions that I had towards this trailer, was the rendition of the Cheetah version herself, the actual supervillain. And to be honest, I'm a bit mixed on it. It looks good in motion where we get those shots where she's in a fight with Diana. Diana's swinging over her and we see her crawling over the walls and leaping and jumping on it. That looked fine. But when we get to that still shot, and admittedly it was very difficult because the sequence was very quickly edited, you couldn't really make out the whole look of the character, and it was all shrouded in this really faded blue filter, so it's very difficult to get a full-on look of the character. You have to kind of pause the trailer. We get that shot where we see her crouch down on the ground, and then it quickly edits out, so it's very unclear from the trailer. I was kind of staring closely at the screen to try and get a good look at the way the character moved. Yeah, and to be honest, it looks a bit unfinished. The effects don't look fully rendered, and I'm a bit surprised at that if that's the case, because as we know, they finished filming and wrapped up editing of this movie months ago, right? It would have already been released if it wasn't for the COVID-19. So as I always say, whenever you fully finish the editing and the filming, when you release footage of the trailer, you want it to be the best footage ever, because first impressions are always the most important, right? So it wasn't the striking, extraordinary image of Cheetah that I was looking for. It was just very mixed. I couldn't really make out what was going on. Now, they may have done this deliberately. They may have done this to kind of lower expectations. So when we go into the movie, we would of course see a lot more visual shots of Cheetah as she battles Wonder Woman, and I'll presume that those shots, the rendition, the effect will be a lot better. I was always curious when they announced Cheetah in this film, how would they approach it? Would it be completely CGI? Would it be part motion capture? Would Kristen Wiig, the actress who played Cheetah, wear more prosthetic? So I think it looks, if it's really more completely CGI, if I'm being honest with you. So one thing that also have to establish is how powerful is Cheetah. As we all know, Wonder Woman is pretty much, in terms of strength at least, on the same par as Superman, right? And we saw that particularly in Batman vs Superman, where she's battling Doomsday, and we saw later on Justice League where she was able to fight Steppenwolf on her own. So they're going to have to do a bit of a job of just establishing how powerful Cheetah is and how plausible it is for her to be able to fight Wonder Woman on her own. As we see in this sequence, we see where Wonder Woman's in that bronzed golden eagle outfit on there. She does look good in that outfit as well. So maybe one way they can explain around it is the fact that because this is in the 1980s, maybe Diana isn't as powerful back then as what she was in Batman vs Superman. Maybe over time her powers developed and her power level and her strength levels increased a lot more as time progressed. They could just explain it like that. Well, they don't even need to explain it, do they? But that's one way. If people ask the actors or Patty Jenkins questions about it, that's one way they can explain that reason. So it just will be more interesting to see how Cheetah moves and how she looks in other shots within the movie, other sequences in the movie. So that was only really the half negative feelings that I had towards the trailer. Everything else looks great. Like I said, great visual shots, great action sequences. Gal Gadot looks fabulous in it. She'll have again good chemistry between her and Steve Trevor. We'll see a lot more of Maxwell Lord in the movie and how influential and how powerful he is in terms of the storyline. So everything looks fine, everything looks great. It's just that Cheetah, I just need to see more. So hopefully within the next week or two, we'll see a much more of a full-on shot, a fully rendered shot of Cheetah going forward to help, I think, convince more people that she's going to look awesome and be an awesome villain to take on Wonder Woman in this sequel. So those are my thoughts on Wonder Woman 1984 trailer. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you excited for this movie, or did the initial reveal of Cheetah kind of give you mixed feelings, or did it put you off completely? I will provide more videos of the DC Fandome content as I go along, but let me know what you think in the comments below, whether you're still excited for Wonder Woman 1984 after this trailer. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.